You too, and very good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to MSBS Weekly Guided Meditation by Phra Goh. Today is the 22nd of August 2023. We'd like to extend a great welcome to all viewers to this online platform. We are very grateful to have with us 𝐵𝐴 Adhibalo, popularly known as Phra Goh. 𝐵𝐴 was born on July 14, 1985. And was ordained under the Theravada tradition of Thai Dhamma sect at Santi Forest Monastery, Johor, at the tender age of 23. 𝐵𝐴 is currently the religious advisor to Buddhist Youth Network, Singapore. We are starting a new topic this week. I wouldn't Sacca Vibhanga Sutta, the analyst of the truth, Majjhima Nikaya 141. So 𝐵𝐴 will be leading the homage to the Buddha and taking a 5% for Buddhists. Now let us compose our mind, put our palms together and welcome 𝐵𝐴. Over to you, 𝐵𝐴.
Okay, thank you, Terence. So we start off with paying respects to the Buddha by giving 3 bows. First bow, second bow, and third bow. Okay, then we do the homage chant. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. 3 refuges. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. And the 5 precepts. Pāṇātipada vēramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Adinādāna vēramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Kāmesu micchācāra vēramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Musāvādā vēramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Surameraya majjapamadatthāna vēramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so good evening to everyone. Today's topic is suggested by Susan. So normally, especially like last year, around the time of this Asala month, we have this Asala Puja, so that kind of commemorates the first successful discourse by the Buddha. The Buddha turned the Dharma wheel, and normally we kind of teach this 𝐷ammacakkappavattana Sutta, yeah? The teachings of this turning of the wheel of this Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And that sutta sort of didn't explain in detail what are these Eightfold Paths. And today, this analysis of the truths is more like an extension of that 𝐷ammacakkappavattana Sutta. So I think it's quite timely we kind of share this also. The monks in the Thai tradition started the rains retreat earlier this month. Yeah, so around this time. Yeah, so kind of post Asala Puja kind of period. So we're going to start this sharing. Okay, so the introduction, right, talks about the Buddha is talking about this first discourse, explaining to his group of monks. So there is not his first discourse anymore. So he already has probably a larger following, and he's like mentioning about the past, about his first discourse. So I just read through briefly. I have heard that on one occasion, the Blessed One was staying near Varanasi in the game refuge at Satipatthana. There he addressed the monks. Monks, yes, Lord, the monks responded. The Blessed One said, monks at Varanasi in the game refuge at Satipatthana, the Tathagata, the worthy one, the rightly self-awakened one, set in motion the unexcelled wheel of Dhamma that cannot be stopped by Brahman or contemplative, deity, Mara or Brahma or anyone at all in the cosmos. Yeah, so he's sharing about that incident. Okay, next. In other words, the declaration, teaching, description, setting forth, revelation, explanation, and making plain of the Four Noble Truths, of which four? The declaration, teaching, description, setting forth, revelation, explanation, and making plain of the noble truth of stress. So that is the first noble truth. So if you look at the picture on the right, some translators use other terms like a more common translation will be suffering. Some will say unsatisfactoriness. So this translation here is by Ajahn Thanisaro, so he used the term stress. So the Pali word is dukkha. Okay, the declaration, same thing, right? Teaching, description, setting forth, revelation, explanation, and making plain of the noble truth of the origination of stress. Right, so that is the second noble truth, the origination of this, or the cause of suffering. And the third one, the noble truth of the cessation of stress, and the truth of the end of suffering. And the last one, the noble truth of the path of practice leading to the cessation of stress. So the last one is actually the Noble Eightfold Path. So these are the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. So when you say Four Noble Truths, it encompasses the Eightfold Path, the Noble Eightfold Path, and the Noble Eightfold Path also encompasses the Four Noble Truths. So we'll get to that later. Okay, next. Okay, so at Varanasi, in the game refuge at Satipatthana, the Tathagata, the worthy one, the rightly self-awakened one, set in motion the unexcelled wheel of Dhamma that cannot be stopped by Brahman or contemplative, deity, Mara or Brahma or anyone at all in the cosmos. So it's repetition. So this is a stock formula for the reciters to memorize and recite the sutta. So you see a lot of repetition. I don't believe the Buddha would repeat over and over again. It will bore the audience. So now I'm boring you, right? So, but trying to explain and make things sort of clarify some of the things here. Okay, in other words, the declaration, teaching, description, setting forth, revelation, explanation, and making plain of these Four Noble Truths. So this is the first segment of this sutta. So the Buddha just mentions, okay, he has explained these Four Noble Truths, how he has taught these Four Noble Truths in this Varanasi. And the next portion, he's going to hand over the lecture to someone else. But before he hand over, he does some kind of introduction. Okay, next. Monks associate with Sariputta and Moggallana. Right, so Sariputta is the right-hand disciple of the Buddha. Moggallana is the left-hand disciple of the Buddha. So normally if you go to Theravada temple, you see two monks beside the Buddha. So that would be this Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Moggallana. These two monks are like friends even before they ordain. And then once they ordain, they become the chief disciples of the Buddha. Okay, so the Buddha mentioned, consort with Sariputta and Moggallana. They are wise monks, sympathetic towards their fellows in the holy life. Like the mother giving birth, that's Sariputta. Like the nurse raising a child after it's born, that's Moggallana. Right? So these two sort of specialize in different functions in propagating the Buddhism. Okay, so what does the Buddha mean by giving birth? So Sariputta trains others to the fruit of stream entry, Moggallana to the highest goal. Right, so this is the metaphor for giving birth. That means the Sariputta is great in his presentation because of his wisdom. He's able to explain things clearly, able to convince the crowd or clear any doubt. And once a person has cleared the doubt, they see the truth or partially see the truth. So there is entering of this stream, right? And maybe in a few cases, this Venerable Sariputta is able to cause some monks to attain enlightenment, like the story of this Venerable Sivali. Yeah? So when shaving the head of Venerable Sivali, and Sivali got enlightened, became an Arahant. So some of the rare cases. Okay, then for Venerable Moggallana, to the highest goal. So if a person, so the metaphor of this nurse raising a child is like this Moggallana. So Venerable Moggallana is more like he's the foremost in psychic power, and Venerable Sariputta is the foremost in wisdom. So Venerable Moggallana would be like training the monks more in meditation, maybe not necessarily psychic power. He has a clique of monks that do have interest in, let's say, psychic abilities, but more so in terms of like various aspects of concentration, maybe the jhanas, and know how to reach this cessation, this we call it nibbida, yeah? Cessation through this all these levels of concentration and so on. So Venerable Moggallana, because of his I believe psychic abilities, is able to know the minds of the meditators. So when the monks are meditating, is able to know which level you are and able to give the proper instruction to, let's say, proceed to the other steps, to the next step. Whereas Venerable Sariputta doesn't have this ability. Yeah, Venerable Sariputta doesn't have the ability to read minds or know the minds of the other monks. Right, so that's Venerable Sariputta. So one example was this, I think there's this monk called Bhaddiya. Bhaddiya is one of the Buddha's cousin, relatively new monk compared to Venerable Sariputta. So Venerable Bhaddiya already reached enlightenment. He already attained this arahanthood, and they happened to cross path with Venerable Sariputta. So they met each other, and it is custom for a junior monk to greet a senior monk. So this Venerable Bhaddiya is paying respects to Venerable Sariputta, and Venerable Sariputta, being the more senior monk, he has this thought that came to his mind that, okay, out of compassion, he should teach Dhamma to this new monk. So he decided to give him like a Dhamma discourse. And the Buddha happened to walk past halfway and during the discourse and asked Venerable Sariputta to come over and told Venerable Sariputta, said, this Venerable Bhadia is already enlightened, you don't have to give him lecture. Huh? So that's Venerable Sariputta. And other case studies would be like this, Venerable Sariputta giving instructions to a certain monk to do these impurities of body meditation. Think of the human biology and anatomy. And this monk, for some reason, unable to improve in the meditation. And he sought Venerable Sariputta again, and he sort of gave the same thing. And he tried for a while, still doesn't work. And he went to the Buddha. So this monk, this new monk went to the Buddha. And the Buddha assessed him for a while and looked, okay, this monk has been 500 lifetimes a jeweler. So he's only attached to beautiful and shiny things. Somehow he's not attached to the body. So when you look at the body parts, doesn't mean anything to him. But when he look at shiny things, like jewels, then he kind of get attached, have this attachment. So the Buddha created this golden flower for this monk to sort of meditate upon, and the Buddha guided him, and eventually he got enlightened. Right? So I think that is a lot of things case by case basis. So the golden flower is not part of any of the so-called 40 meditation objects. Basically, the countless meditation objects can be sort of born out of the 5 aggregates. Okay, so this is just a few examples, but anyway, Sariputta is capable of declaring, teaching, describing, setting forth, revealing, explaining, and making plain the 4 noble truths in detail. Right, so basically, the Buddha is going to hand over the rest of the lecture to this Venerable Sariputta. Because the Buddha is not going to explain the 4 noble truths. The Buddha is going to let Venerable Sariputta explain the 4 noble truths. So he just hand over to this Venerable Sariputta. Okay, next. That is what the Blessed One said. Having said it, he, the one well gone, rose from his seat and entered his dwelling. Alright, so he went back. He doesn't want to give any further discourse. Then Venerable Sariputta, not long after the Blessed One had left, addressed the monks. Friends, so now Venerable Sariputta has officially taken over the lecture. Yes, friend, the monks responded. So last time, the monks call each other friend. Friend, all friend here, friend there. So right before the Buddha passed away, then the Buddha set this rule, okay, after he passed away, the junior monks cannot call the senior monks friend anymore, must call them Bhante. It's there's a kind of hierarchy now, based on seniority. And senior monks can still call the junior monks friend. So now the sort of addressing has changed. But in those days, when the Buddha is still still moving around, everyone call each other friend. Venerable Sariputta said, friends at Varanasi in game refuge at Satipatthana, the Tathagata, the worthy one, the rightly self-awakened one, set in motion the unaccepted wheel of Dhamma that cannot be stopped by Brahman or contemplative. Same introduction given by the Buddha, deity, Mara, or Brahma, or anyone at all in the cosmos. Same introduction. Next slide. So this is exactly the same as what the Buddha has spoken earlier, so I don't have to read everything. Basically, introduction of 4 noble truths. Right, so this is the same declaration. Next slide. Right, so this is exactly the same as what the Buddha mentioned earlier in the introduction. Okay, next. Okay, so now this is going detail into the content. This is where Venerable Sariputta put his value worth. Basically, the Buddha hand over to him, so because he's going to explain everything in detail. Okay, so now what, friends, is the noble truth of stress? So this is the first noble truth. Right, so in this particular sutta, very interesting, they don't mention all 8 kinds of sufferings. So this is Venerable Sariputta's version. So the first one, birth is stressful. Second, aging is stressful. Third one, death is stressful. And the fourth one, sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, and despair are stressful. And the next one, not getting what is wanted is stressful. And last one, in short, the 5 clinging aggregates are stressful. Yeah, so the sort of the most common formula one would know is they will include sickness. Yeah, sickness is stressful. They include separation from loved one is stressful. Associating with people you do not like is stressful. So I think there's these few more things. Okay, but anyway, the first 7 or the first everything, except for the last one, is just an example. The main thing is the last one. The 5 clinging aggregates are stressful. So this is the main point. Everything above are just examples. It's because we cling on the 5 aggregates, that is why we find this birth, aging, death, all these are stressful. If there is no clinging, then there is no stress. Alright, so this is the his version, or sometimes even the Thai version. Even if I compare the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the first discourse of the Buddha, the Thai edition also will miss out sickness. Somehow they don't like sickness. they omit the sickness part. Sickness is suffering, they remove that. But in the Sri Lankan and the Burmese tradition, they have the sickness is suffering. So anyway, this is just a short comparison. Next. Okay, so now we are going to talk about, he's going to define what is birth. Yeah, whatever birth, taking birth, descent, coming to be, coming forth, appearance of aggregates, and acquisition of sense spheres of that various beings in this or that group of beings, that is called birth. Okay, so this one, the birth have many definitions here. So first one, we call descent. You see the word descent in the sort of second line. Whatever birth, taking birth, descent. So descent, we talk about this in this Maha Sankhaya Sutta. It's a very long sutta talking about dependent origination. So the descent is a process where, like this, another unseen being called the Gandhabba, or some people call it kind of transition, kind of mind or spirit or whatever it is. So there is like a process. During the process of conception, at least for humans, we have the parents, they have this, after they do their mating, if all the conditions are right, the fertilization take place, then this being called the Gandhabba will descend into the womb. Right, so this is so-called from that sutta, this Maha Sankhaya Sutta. So that is the descent. Coming to be. So the term coming to be is a very broad term. It doesn't have to be a physical kind of birth taking place. So coming to be, we talk about this at least in the psychological level. We call this coming or becoming, coming to be. And that can happen, I always give example, when we think of a scenario. So one good example I always mention, horror movie. Horror movie. How many of you ever watched horror movies? Okay, I'm just giving an example, a horror movie. So if you watch a horror movie, do you feel afraid? Yeah, we know the story is fake. We know it's not real. But when the certain character or certain scene, you feel that you are like inside the horror movie, right? So this is called coming to be. You become like part of the character. You become the person there. So the sense of I, the sense of self appear, right? Become. So that is a kind of birth. You appear and become there, over there. So then when you pay attention back to your own body, then you come back and you become again. And if let's say we think, for example, let's say we think of our parents, for example, then we become a child. If we think of our, let's say, our boss, then we become the, I don't know, the worker, right? But if we think of our colleagues, then we become the colleague. If we think of our friends, then we become a friend. So it's a scenario by scenario basis. So this birth is like moment to moment. Every time we think of a new contact, then there's a new birth. So that is another definition of birth. And the next one, coming forth, right? Appearance of aggregates. Okay. So when we talk about appearance of aggregates, that again is it can happen moment to moment. It can also happen at a physical level, like conception. So that is a physical level, appearance of these aggregates. And the mental level will be like moment to moment, like we talked about earlier. Acquisition of sense spheres of the various beings in this or that group of beings, that is called birth. Yeah, so they talk about also being born in the various planes of existence, right? So that is also part of the definition of birth. And what is aging? Whatever aging, decrepitude, brokenness, graying, wrinkling, decline of life force, weakening of faculties of the various beings in this or that group of beings, that is called aging. Alright, so that is I think quite obvious, right? We all go through this aging. Okay, next. And what is death? Whatever decreasing, passing away, breaking up, disappearance, dying, death, completion of time, breakup of the aggregates, casting off of the body, interruption of the life faculty of the various beings in this or that group of beings, that is called death. Right, so this one again have many kind of interesting terms here. So decreasing, passing away, we know, very obvious. Breaking up, yeah, the body decomposing. Disappearance, right? So this word is very interesting. Disappearance is like suddenly, like not there, disappearance. So this is the, for example, like the 5 aggregates disappearing, at least at the mental level. There's a birth and death going on every moment. There's a birth of the aggregates and the disappearance of the aggregates every moment. Okay. Interruption of the life faculty, right? Casting off of the body. So all these are quite obvious. Okay, next. And what is this sorrow, right? Again, this is theoretical. Everybody have gone through sorrow before, so just a brief read through. Whatever sorrow, sorrowing, sadness, inward sorrow, inward sadness of anyone suffering from misfortune, touched by a painful thing, that is called sorrow. And lamentation would be more or less the same thing. All right. And pain, bodily pain, discomfort, discomfort of the mind. They never talk about mind. Okay, just talk about body, and that is called pain. All right, and distress, yeah, it's the mental version. So distress, then you have this mental discomfort. It's called distress. So pain, he defines here more towards bodily, and distress is more on the mental. Okay, and what's despair? And despair is also the same as this sorrow, sorrow and lamentation. Okay, next. So a lot of terms here, sorrow, lamentation, despair, but more or less repeating the same thing. Okay, and what is the stress of not getting what is wanted? in being subject to birth, the wish arises, oh, may we not subject to birth, and may birth not come to us. Right, so this is what at least the Theravada Buddhists aim for. No more, try not to get born so many times. So we always say we are the Gyasi Buddhists. We don't want to come back again and again. Right, so yeah, we don't want to die and reborn. So this is the stress of not getting what is wanted. So same with the aging, illness, death, sorrow, lamentation. So for the rest, it's quite understandable. No, we don't want to get old, or we don't want to get ill. Interestingly, illness is mentioned here. Illness is mentioned here in this particular sutta. But earlier on, illness is not mentioned as part of the definition of suffering. So I have a feeling that the Thai edition, they never omit properly, and they have left this one behind. Yeah, oh, may we not be subject to aging, illness, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, and despair. And may aging, illness, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, and despair not come to us. But this is not to be achieved by one thing. This is the stress of not getting what is wanted. So if we were to go and I always mention, especially like for blessing, people come and pai. They want to have no more illness, no more this, no more that. I cannot grant you this wish. I don't have the power to change for you. So this is how do you call this? It's a kind of stress. Everybody will go through this illness. So the only way is to mentally, learn how to detach from these 5 aggregates. All right, next. Okay, so this is the sort of the gist, or the main component. And what are the 5 clinging aggregates? So we normally go through this in our routine. So the first one, the clinging aggregate of form. Second one, you have feeling. The third one, perception. Fourth one, fabrications. And the last one, consciousness. Right, so these are the 5 clinging aggregates. In short, are stressful. Right, so this is the noble truth of stress. So this is the first noble truth. So he covered so-called whatever he defined as stress or suffering. And the main thing is to introduce these 5 clinging aggregates. We use 5 aggregates to perceive the world. And when we perceive the world, we will cling. We will cling to something, the strongest stimuli. For example, we've been talking about this. Like for example, some people can get angry the whole day, or get grumpy the whole day, or sad the whole day, moody the whole day, depression the whole day. Do they know this is a bad emotion? They know it's a bad emotion, but they cannot get out of it because they cling. It's a kind of addiction. It's very, there's nothing better, nothing stronger for them to cling on to. Nothing else stronger for them to cling on to. So they will cling on to that sort of negative emotion the whole day. So you tell them, hey, don't be sad lah, don't be upset. They will still get upset, So you need to, sort of bring them to another form of emotion, probably a more pleasant, wholesome emotion, to get them out of that negative emotion. All right, so for us who are still relatively, I think, neutral right now, this is the best time to cultivate positive, wholesome emotions. So we strengthen them, make them strong. So next time when there's any unpleasantness, when there's hiccups in life, any kinds of unpleasant emotions want to surface, then they will appear very weak compared to this pleasant emotion, to this wholesome emotion. All right, then this is called kind of mental resilience, a kind of training, so that the mind will stay strong. All right, so this is my sharing for today, at least for this part. I don't want to go too long, if not it'll be too heavy. Any questions at this moment? Nothing? Okay, all very clear. First Noble Truth, very straightforward. Oh, okay, then we go for a 5-minute break to digest whatever has been said. Then we come back 5 minutes later for the guided meditation. So I see you back in 5 minutes time. Right, while waiting for the rest to turn on their screens or come back, anyone has anything to ask or clarify? Okay, so in our routine, we'll be sort of introducing these 5 aggregates, or we've been introducing the 5 aggregates, so it's kind of repetitive. So now we're sort of more trying to understand what is this stress and suffering. So hopefully this is not a torturous meditation. Okay, so we kind of find a comfortable sitting posture. Make sure our back is upright, rest of the body relaxed. Okay, so sometimes stress can be very obvious if it is like kind of pain, like mentioned earlier on in the definition. If some upsetting thing happened, then that kind of stress or that kind of suffering is obvious. But sometimes this stress may not be so obvious, like if we are now in our aircon room or whatever setting we are in, we may not feel that kind of suffering. So we are now going to try to understand what is the suffering in terms of differentiation by kind of comparison, right? Before, after we do right reflection. Okay, so now we are going to sort of relax and take note of this state of mind, this emotion, and we are going to start off with a bit of visualization. This one is part of the impurities of the body meditation. So we're going to think of all the hairs of the head and hairs of the body. So a mind without any kind of contemplation yet. When you think of the hairs, then it will be my hairs. This is my hairs, and the mind can go to the extremes. If the hair looks beautiful, you like the hair, then there will be greed. And if your hair, you find it awful or disgusting, then you'll develop anger, aversion. Right, so we're still using the 5 aggregates to perceive the hairs, and there will be a kind of suffering involved, kind of stress. We may not identify or understand the stress, but slowly we're trying to identify later on through comparison. Right, so most of the time we think, life is normal, where got suffering. Right, so now we sort of take note. And now we're going to apply this right thought. We're going to wish all these hairs well and happy. So the phrasing is important. I wish the hairs well and happy, not wish my hairs. You don't add the word my inside. We try to reduce or overcome this self-cherishing thought. So when we visualize the image, we call this mindfulness of the body. The hairs is part of the body. And when we deliberately label, we wish the hairs well and happy, that labeling, that thought is part of right thought, thought of non-anger. And if we keep repeating every time we think of a new image, then we need to keep repeating, wish it well and happy. That's part of right effort. And while you keep wishing the hairs well and happy, then you at the sidelines, you can observe what happened to the emotion, the state of mind, what kind of feeling. And but emphasis is on keep on wishing the hairs well and happy. So when we are wishing the hairs well and happy, we are reducing this craving of aversion. Yeah, so what is stress, what is happiness, is all very relative. Huh? So if the stress level is sort of reduced, the mind is calmer. We call this the baseline emotion in our routine. Baseline emotion. This is like the samatha aspect of the impurities of body meditation. And next we are going to reflect on impermanence. So this is part of thoughts of non-greed and non-delusion. So we are going to think of all the hairs going through birth, aging, sickness, and death. And if you think of this sickness and death process for too long, then it will be suffering. So we do a fast forward process. Keep looping. Hair growing, hair falling, hair growing, hair falling. And when you keep looping this image, we can also observe the impermanent nature of the 5 aggregates. So this is more of the Vipassana aspect of this meditation. So the image, the hairs is made of these 5 aggregates. There's form, there's hairs have shape, has certain size, has maybe weight, and so on, even though it's imaginary in our mind. So there's part of a form. And you have feelings. Every time you think of a different image, what kind of feelings do you have? A young hair, what kind of feeling? Old hair, what kind of feeling? And if the hair falls down, what kind of feeling? Pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feelings. And you have perception. So perception is the all the labels you've learned in the past, what kind of hair you call it, young hair, old hair, what kind of colors you use for that image. So all these are perception and memories. And every time you generate a new image, that is a mental formation. And the last one, consciousness, is the awareness of that image. We call this mind door consciousness. And if you are hearing my voice, then that's using your ear consciousness. So in between 2 images, hairs growing, hairs falling. What happened to this consciousness? What happened to this awareness? Is it always staying there, or is it running around? So the more we think of impermanence quickly, then there is detachment. Once we slow down, it's a bit like getting stuck in the quicksand, and then there will be suffering. We think of a particular incident, aging. Oh, my hair turned white. How can I dye my hair black? Or my hair keep falling too much. What kind of hair treatment should I go for? So before one reflects on impermanence, one needs the right condition. The mind needs to be calm, so that's why we use the loving kindness for the first part before we think of impermanence. Then the mind will be more accepting of this impermanence. If not, we'll suffer also. The mind cannot accept change. So the change can also, in a way, cause suffering to unprepared mind. So if the mind is prepared, the impermanence should create a kind of detachment. And when there is detachment, the sign to know whether you're doing correctly is probably a kind of joy. If you let go, you should feel joyful or peaceful afterwards. And regardless of what you experience, keep on reflecting on impermanence. If the more you meditate, the more stressful you get, that means something is wrong. We then become feeding this craving. We are not reducing craving. And we can ask ourselves, are these hairs truly self? Can we tell the hairs not to go through this birth and death? So basically it's also to observe the sense of self or the selfishness. This ego, is it increasing or decreasing when we reflect on impermanence? So if we are not mindful of impermanence, we think of the sort of dramas of the hairs, then we become part of that drama, that story. And the mind will create lots of series and episodes, and maybe a movie marathon on the hairs even. Okay, then we are now going to switch to the next part of the body. We're going to think of the nails, fingernails and toenails, and we wish them well and happy. And all these nails go through birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. And we think of the nails growing and falling, many, many cycles. And when we keep looping this process, we can also observe the arising and passing of the 5 aggregates. And we can ask ourselves, are these nails truly self? Can we tell the nails not to go through this birth and death? So now this routine, we're switching between the samatha and the vipassana aspect of the visualized image. So we observe also the sense of self, how does it manifest in these different phases. So now we are still at the vipassana phase of the nails, impermanence of the nails. Okay, then we are now moving to the next part of the body. We're going to think of these teeth. All the teeth inside the mouth, may they be well and happy. All the upper rows of teeth and lower rows of teeth, may they be well and happy. And all these teeth go through birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So you think of the teeth growing and falling, many, many cycles. Even though the teeth fall off the most twice, we can just keep repeating over and over again. It's just a mental detachment exercise. And while we keep looping this process, we can also observe the arising and passing of the 5 aggregates. So the whole idea of this meditation is we are not training the teeth, we are not training the hairs, we are not training the nails, we are training how to let go of this clinging of these 5 aggregates. So the end product is more of the sense of peace or less stress, how to overcome this stress, how much detachment can you sort of experience. So if you stand part of the body for long, then that kind of defeat the purpose. You create more of this suffering. And we can ask ourselves, are these teeth truly self? Can we tell the teeth not to go through birth and death? So now we're going to think of the skin, and we're going to wish all the skin well and happy. Right, new patch of skin, well and happy, new patch of skin, well and happy. So it's not just staring at the skin by itself, but you need to accompany by right thought. So the theme is on the Noble Eightfold Path, rolling the wheel. So we really need to apply the wheel, all the Eightfold Path factors. So once we do not turn the wheel, we do not apply right thought, then it becomes unskillful thought. it will result in clinging to unskillfulness. So some people are asking me, how come your meditation so much thinking, keep reflecting, right thought, right thought. This is part of skillful thought, right thought. Once we sort of do nothing only, then no skill required. So we call this unskillful thought. Okay, your mind is quite calm. Then we're going to think of impermanence. All these hairs go through birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So you think of them growing and falling, many, many cycles. And as we keep looping this image, we can also observe or investigate the arising and passing of the 5 aggregates. Okay, then we can ask ourselves, are the skin truly self? Can we tell the skin not to go through birth and death? Okay, and the next phase of meditation, we are no longer using visualization, but even without visualization, it's also using the 5 aggregates. So we are now feeling the sensations of the body, sort of familiarized with the 4 elements. So whatever sensation appear in the body, we just wish them well and happy. So the earth element represents any hard or soft sensations, fire element hot and cold, wind element any kind of movement, fast or slow movements, and water element, moist or dry sensations. So basically these are just general classification. If you cannot figure out which element this sensation belongs to, doesn't matter. Whole idea is you detect something, wish it well and happy. So the whole idea is we do not deliberately create any sensation, we do not control, we do not reject, do not fight. We just let it appear naturally by itself, and our job is to deliberately label, wish it well and happy. or rather making peace with all these sensations. Every time new sensation appears, then we wish it well and happy. So a new contact, new sensation appearing, means it's a new condition for the mind to cling. Either it's a crossroads every moment. Every time it's either we have skillful thought or unskillful thought. Once we do not wish the sensation well and happy, then the mind will naturally cling depending on what kind of feeling this sensation have. If it's a pleasant feeling, then the mind will create dramas on the nice sensations. And if it's an unpleasant feeling, then the mind will create dramas on all these unpleasant sensations. And once you create the dramas, that is a new becoming, a new person, new story. Probably a new kind of birth. So we always come back, stick to not getting sucked into the dramas, yeah, always wish the sensations well and happy. And if our mind is quite calm at the baseline emotion, we call this the restricted form of loving kindness, still within the confines of the body. And what we are going to do is now we take note of this emotion. Yeah, remember this emotion, restricted or baseline emotion. And now we are going to wish all beings in all directions well and happy, above, below, and all across. So we don't need to purposely push the mind, we just make a gentle wish and let the mind extend naturally by itself. However far you wish to extend doesn't matter. And we're using the non-discriminative approach. So all beings, we treat them as being made of these 5 aggregates. Yeah, so we try not to visualize any group of beings or any particular person. So we're just going to wish all beings well and happy. So every time a new sensation appears, we're using the lowest common denominator. Any new sensation appear, we wish all beings well and happy. New sensation appear, may all beings be well and happy. So this is boundless loving kindness. We try not to associate with, oh, I just like my loved ones, my close friends or family members. So we don't do that. Yeah, we kind of wish all beings. So it's a bit like wishing for world peace. So the sensation may appear inside the body, outside the body, doesn't matter as long as you detect something. Then we wish all beings well and happy. Okay, so the more we are sort of wishing all beings well and happy, there should be a sense of increment of either peace or this joyful or happy emotion compared to the baseline emotion. So that is a kind of experience that is not within the sensual or materialistic kind of emotion. And we normally have this, this loving kindness may lead to this first level of concentration. So whatever you experience is just byproduct. Emphasis is on wishing all beings well and happy. Okay, now we're going to add some insight, some wisdom, and we're going to reflect on impermanence and cultivate a more unconditional kind of loving kindness. So every sensation that we detect, we also put a label, impermanence. So basically we observe real time how it changes and also label the change. Okay, so the same phenomena should happen. Any kind of detachment should produce certain good emotion. And if, let's say, the joy and happiness start to subside or disappear, then one may experience neutral but refreshing kind of emotion. So we call that equanimity. And regardless of what you experience, keep on reflecting on impermanence. So in the first discourse by the Buddha straightway start off with the three kinds of extremes to avoid, three kinds of these cravings to avoid, kama tanha, bhava tanha, vibhava tanha. So bhava tanha means craving for becoming. So if, let's say, we do not repeat the thoughts of impermanence, the mind will naturally cling to the next strongest emotion. So if we are in a state of peace, let's say we experience equanimity, and the mind will just stuck at this equanimity. So that is a kind of craving. And the second kind of craving, that's bhava tanha. So the first one is kama tanha. Kama tanha means craving for sensuality. That is anything in the sensual world, sensual desires, we crave for it. For example, stray thoughts, all the dramas in the mind. It can be worries, it can be fantasies. As long as we enjoy that story, we get stuck into it. That is a sensual craving. And bhava tanha is the states of peace. So it's form and formless becoming, desire becoming, and vibhava tanha. Vibhava tanha means craving for annihilation. You want to destroy, you want to get rid. So any kind of experience that you do not like, you have aversion, you want to destroy it, right? So that is another kind of craving we try to avoid. So the only way to avoid is to stick with the middle path, stick with the right thought. You cannot avoid these extremes by doing nothing. You do nothing, the mind will naturally cling to one of the three. Because everything else here is made of the 5 aggregates, the samsara. So it's designed for you to cling, designed for you to have attachment and suffering. So we treat all other phenomenon as byproduct, as passing scenery. As we roll the wheel along the middle path, everything else is passing scenery. We keep rolling the wheel, keep traveling the middle path, keep generating right thought, keep reflecting on impermanence. Okay, before we conclude, same gentle reminder from the Karaniya Metta Sutta is that as long as we maintain this boundless loving kindness, be it standing, sitting, walking or lying down, then this is the noblest living. And with that we can gently open our eyes, formally end the session, but informally still can generate right thought, either loving kindness or impermanence. Okay, any questions from the ground? I think I have a question from the comments, Facebook live stream. Someone asked, how can rites and rituals guide us to understand the Four Noble Truths better, so as to lead a more meaningful worldly and spiritual life? Can rites and rituals be a hindrance to our spiritual practice if we are too rigid or obsessed with them? Right, so this is a very good question. There are so many traditions nowadays. Every tradition or every individual, every temple have a different sort of content, different types of chant inside the chanting book. So everyone is different, right? So all the rituals are different. So my answer would be, based on this I think Vajjiya Sutta. Yeah? So the same question posed by this ascetic Vajjiya to the Buddha. So many practices in India, so many ascetics, right? So many different practices. Which one is correct? So the Buddha gave an answer. If any rites or any practices that leads to reducing greed and hatred and increasing of these wholesome qualities, then this would be the right kind of ritual. You should carry on practicing these rituals. And if it leads to more unwholesome states of mind, you get more angry, get more frustrated, more greedy, then something is wrong somewhere. You need to troubleshoot. So either you fine-tune the understanding, or seek clarification, or you stop the practice and find some other practice. So that is my answer to it. Hopefully that clarifies. Anyone else here? Okay, if not, we are going to end with this dedication chant. Okay, so Anumodana. Akasata ca Bhumata Devanaga Mahitika Punyang tang anumoditva Cirang rakantu loka sasanang Etavata ca amhihi Sampadang punya sampadang Sabbe deva sabbe bhuta sabbe sattva anumodantu Sabba sampati siddhya. And dedication of merits to departed. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Aspiration. Imina punya kamena mame bala samagamo. Satang samagamo hotu yawa nibbana patiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we end off with paying respects to the Buddha by giving 3 bows. First bow, second bow, and the third bow. Okay, that's all. Any announcements from Terence? If not, then good night and see you all next week.